Okay, so this is Friday, January the 23rd, looking at how we're doing with our trend wheel strategy here. We had in week two, as you may recall, for the 20 delta, we had a potential profit of, what did we say that was? $936. We made exactly all $936. So that was super good. And in fact, uh, we did that. Now looking at that was week two. Week three, we are planning to produce or put on our next set of cash secured puts, and we expect to generate this week $1,088 in premium for this coming week. So that's gonna help. So we'll look. This is the 20 delta, which is the more conservative of the two. The 30 delta is the one that's a little bit more aggressive, and we'll look at that one. This is a bit more interesting because, as you might recall from last week's update, we were assigned shares of both Hood and Palantir. So we were assigned shares at 112, but we'd actually closed. We actually closed the contract a little bit early, but I kept that negative in week one, so it actually reduced the amount, the effective. It wasn't a negative. I kept I traded it as though I had closed it and paid to get out of the trade. In fact, why don't I just show you so it's not so confusing. So what I've done here is in week one, we put on the Robinhood put at a 112 strike. It closed below 112, it was around 108 and change. And therefore, if I had closed this out, I would have had to pay $3.29 to shut it down. So it was actually a loss for the week. Similarly, Palantir, I would have had to pay $1.42 to close it down. But I kept but of course, we'd already received the premium. So in fact, we didn't have to pay anything back. I just wanted to show this so that I could show how much of the profit from week one we actually could keep. So back here in week number two, instead of showing this as a 112 buy price, which it technically was, I just subtracted that 342 so that I wouldn't be double counting that loss. So this now shows that I had an effective purchase price of 108.71. And we can see that during the week, Robinhood kept going down. It ended up the week with around $100 and change. So we actually ended up in a negative position for the week. So now, 1 second here. Okay, sorry about that. I had a formula error I needed to correct. So yeah, so we can see here that buying it effectively at 108.71, selling it at 100, or its current price is $100 and change, we would have at a loss, not a profit, a loss of about $817. So I want to make sure I'm calculating correctly what the loss is, or what the total profit amount would have been for week two. So we were at a loss for Robinhood, and we were at a loss for Palantir, because the same thing happened there. But we had sold covered calls on Robinhood and Palantir, along with cash secured puts for the other positions. So now if we add up, when we originally sold this, we expected that we were going to get, let's get right down here. We expected we were going to get $1,101. We generated $1,101 in revenue. And of that, we were only able to keep about $113 or so. So that's good to know that. And then we look at week three, where we're going to put on our next set of cash secured puts and the covered calls for Robinhood and Palantir. And so for this week, we expect that we are going to generate. Oh, I forgot. We also had SoFi close below our strike, so we were assigned shares of SoFi as well. And so the same deal happened here, where we would have bought at $26, but since I'm capturing the fact that if I had closed this, I would have had to pay an extra $19 to close that. So this ended up being, or 19 cents a share, this ended up being an effective purchase price of $25.81 for SoFi, and it closed right around $26. So we end up in a situation where we generated profit for the cash flow for the week of $1,215 or thereabouts, and so that's really what we're sitting on for the 30 delta weekly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hide all of the things that are not closed or that are not active. So everything is closed. We don't need to be looking at it any further. We'll close that down. So we now can see that for our active trades, we've got shares of Robinhood, Palantir, and SoFi. We've got covered calls on each of those, and then we've got puts on the rest. And I'll do the same over here in the 20 delta weekly, and I will remove all of the closed so we can just look at what we've got. And then if we go over here to our portfolio charts, we can see how things have shaped up. So we ended up the week at in a profit position for all of our portfolios. There was a period of time earlier in the week when the market had really dropped, and we were in a loss position for every single one of our portfolios. That was as of Tuesday the 20th, but it had recovered pretty substantially by today, Friday. So you can see that in the charts. And of course the monthlies, we're not really going to spend much time on them right now because nothing much has changed other than they're making their way through the positions. They don't expire until February the 20th, so we'll go over that in more detail when we get closer to that date. But in the meantime, it's continuing along, and we can see how they are comparing relative to one another. And that is going to wrap up for this update, and we'll talk to you again next week.